Warm greetings from the high 10 is Everyday Shenanigans. Yes, the Queen is up very early after 6 a.m. here, Tennessee time. I was up late and my spirit wouldn't let me rest pertaining to the Idaho for university students. I did not want to talk about this subject matter because it has too many moving parts, but something struck me strange after listening to commentary that was uploaded days ago. And I'm going to play two audios pertaining to this case. CNN is source number one. This was uploaded 4 days ago. Hear what struck ex-FBI official about Idaho murders investigation. Thank you for joining.
Idaho authorities say they are, quote, making progress, unquote, in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, but they're still not providing many details. Police told CNN today that they have interviewed more than 90 people and received at least 700 leads. Investigators also said they found a dog at the home where the students were killed. The dog, who is seen here with one of the victims, was found unharmed. But at this hour, there's still no suspect in custody and more questions than answers. CNN's Natasha Chen took a look at the police response. This is her report.
The incomplete and sometimes contradictory information came in the first days of the investigation.
We believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims.
Those words echoed in the press, perhaps leaving the impression that the police knew something that should make the public less worried. But some residents and neighbors near the crime scene were not comforted by the terms targeted and isolated.
At first, I thought that they actually had something going, so you think that makes sense, like, oh, it's targeted, and you wait to see what they say, but now they've said nothing and that they know nothing. So how can you say it's targeted?
Then the local mayor went further, telling the New York Times it could have been, quote, a crime of passion, later clarifying that was just one possibility.
They don't want people to panic. And yet, unless you have the evidence that you are willing to share with the public and be transparent about how the investigation is going, these words are completely giving false confidence.
But police say they can't share their entire case for fear of compromising the investigation.
You can't just put that out into the public's eye. It would impede the investigation, and ultimately it might impede justice at the very end of this.
But with no suspect identified, many students packed up and left town.
There's no perp taught or anything, so it's definitely uneasy on campus right now.
By day 4, police recognized their assurances of public safety weren't resonating as residents fixated on the fact a killer was not caught. Police Chief James Fry went before the cameras.
We cannot say that there's no threat to the community.
Still calling the crime targeted, but pulling back on assurances there was no public threat and pledging to release more.
I probably should have been standing here a day or so ago, but I'm here now.
Between 2016 and 2021, there were no murders in Moscow. So when the quadruple homicide stunned this town, the 36-person police force was pressed into unprecedented action. With no full-time communication staff.
The messaging was a little bit off.
Idaho State Police were brought in to assist with public messaging.
And really put out, hopefully, the best information we can.
But the rumor mill has been hard to control. A report of a man loitering at a food truck near 2 of the victims was knocked down by police, who later said they eliminated the man as a suspect. Reports that someone's pet dog was, quote, skinned 3 weeks before the killings are also believed to be unrelated. Meanwhile, police are trying to protect the integrity of the investigation.
If you flood the public with information of everything that's going on, then stories might start merging.
Stories are already emerging. Rumors are emerging.
Yeah, unfortunately, rumors are out there. People want answers. A lot of times, or all the time on TV, these are solved within 60 minutes. There's an appetite to make sure these are done, and we totally respect that, and we will put out as much information as we can, as soon as we can.
Though some victims' families have expressed frustration with a lack of information.
Together, we want to extend gratitude to the following.
This week, the family of Ethan Chapin acknowledged answers and justice can only come now from police.
The Moscow Police Department, who now carry the burden every day, not only for us, but for all of the impacted families.
I asked about the threat level to the community given the initial confusion of that message. And Aaron Snell here told me that it's always a good idea to be vigilant since the suspect hasn't been caught, saying that it's a good idea to walk in pairs, to lock doors at night,
And he did not rule out the possibility of perhaps more than one person responsible for these killings. I also asked about this being a targeted attack, and he reiterated that they still believe that it was, based on evidence found at the scene and the fact that 2 people in the house survived the attack. So if it were a bit more non-discriminate, then perhaps everyone might have died. We hope to hear much more information coming out at a press conference tomorrow at 1 p.m. local time, John.
Natasha Chen in Moscow, Idaho. A terrific report. Natasha, thank you very much. More perspective now from former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who is now a CNN senior law enforcement analyst. Andy, we just mentioned we are expecting officials to release more updates at a news conference tomorrow, but it's now been more than a week since the murders, and we really don't have any answers. So what do you make of the lack of details?
Well, John, there's a couple of things that I think are really troubling here. One, of course, is the lack of detail. Now, you would never expect any police agency to share all of the details of a crime of this nature with the public, but you would expect them to tell you some of the basics about how they're doing and what they're thinking, simply to calm fears, to let folks know that they're on the job and they're getting things done. Not only have they not done that, they've actually made statements that are contradictory and cause more confusion than they've helped. So they are definitely behind the power curve here in terms of managing this crisis response with their press outreach. And we're just hoping that that's not indicative of a lack of organization or focus or capability in getting this investigation done. Because
in your mind, there are still very real current public safety concerns there?
No question. You have a quadruple homicide. You do not have, by their own admission, they do not have a suspect identified. They don't, presumably, not that we know of anyway, they don't have a communication or any sort of claim of motive or purpose behind that. They don't have a murder weapon recovered yet. So without any of those facts in place, I don't see how they can possibly state with any confidence that there is not a threat to the community. Clearly, there is. That threat still out there.
One of the things police have said is they have ruled multiple people out. How useful is that in an investigation to rule people out?
You know, eventually, John, you want to rule people out, but I was struck with how quickly they ruled out a fairly large group of folks who seem to have played key roles in the discovery of this crime. So you have the 2 roommates who were on the premises when the murders were taking place. You have some number of either a friend or some friends who came over to see those roommates the next morning before the 911 call was made. You have the individual who drove the 2 females from the food trucks back to their house right before the homicides took place. And all of those folks have been kind of dismissed as having no involvement. It just seems kind of quick to be writing off folks who were so close to this event. You'd think you'd want to do a pretty substantial, thorough investigation of each one of those people and their networks to ensure that there's absolutely no connection before you go out to the public and say, yeah, we've cleared all these people. But, again, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Andrew McCabe, thank you very much for helping us understand the limited details we do have. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
All right, everybody. CNN is the source. Let's chop up what was said during this commentary. Targeted attack. They are still claiming that the attacks were targeted. What was seen at the scene, what was visible at the scene. We have not heard of any sexual assault of the ladies. So why were these 4 targeted? Threat level is still imminent because you do not have a suspect arrested or in custody. We don't know if it was more than one person. So we're going to ask, how many people were involved in the murders of these individuals? No communication staff for the police department. Why not? I hear that they have a staff of 36 individuals working for the police department, assumingly officials. That's not good. That's not good at all. Something that bothered the Queen is the fact that there's a house that sits right below the driveway or to the side of the driveway. What did this person or person see of that morning? when the ladies and the gentlemen returned home. The fact that another apartment sits, which will, I believe, be to the right of the property. A lot of traffic possibly going in and out of there, possibly university students as well. Could anyone from that apartment complex visiting and or living have something to do with this crime? Because all these places are neatly tucked in together. So people can watch from windows, seeing people come and go. Something to consider. This ex-FBI official talks about lack of organization. So I'd like to know, are they equipped to solve homicides? Because basic crimes versus homicide is totally different. You need seasoned detectives to work on a murder investigation, plural. So do they have seasoned detectives working for this police department? When was the last murder, which we get a 5-year time frame? They hadn't had a murder in about 5 or so years. So I'd like to know, was that murder solved? If not, why not? What type of knife was used? Because no weapon was recovered. One would assume it's a big knife, because if the perpetrator used the same knife, they were vigorously killing these children. I call them children because I'm old enough to be their mother, although they were adults. But nonetheless, was one weapon used? How many perpetrators are we talking about? Obviously, the killer took the knife with him or her. Is this a female or male killer? Stay woke. Do these people who remain behind have anything to do with the murder of these people? Although they've been cleared, you hear this ex-official saying, FBI official saying, quite a few people have been cleared. But should they have been cleared? Driver that dropped the girls off, roommates behind their company. How many people were actually visiting the 2 remaining roommates that were there? It is alleged that they were also sleep when the crime took place. So what time did the crime take place? So now I'm supposed to believe that everybody in the house was asleep at the time of the murder, number one. How many people were actually visiting the 2 remaining roommates that survived? Why were they not targeted? What proof does the police have that the 4 murdered, that they were targeted crimes? What was seen at the crime scene to say, yes, they were targeted because of this, and this? Stay woke. Always remember that everything you need to know about the story is at the beginning, not the middle, not the end. Your truth lies at the beginning of the story. Multiple people ruled out fairly quickly, as this ex-agent says. And he feels like they played key roles because one of them is the one that called 911 that somebody's passed out. And the reason why I'm up at this early morning is because my spirit was bothering me about the information. And most of you know, I do my best thinking in the late hours. That is when my mind is in rotation and I can think clearer. And my mind was telling me, always use deduction in a true crime. What is off about the story? You see, what is off about a story will reveal the truth in the story. Such as 4 are dead and 2 are remaining. No break-in. Did they have security cameras? Doorbell cameras? Stay woke. If they had security cameras, which I'm going to assume they possibly did, the door has push key buttons. So that would lead me to think that you had security on the property. So were all windows, doors connected to the security system, motion sensor. Come on with it, Queen, because they ain't woke. Wouldn't you hear a door ping, open or close? Bingo card. Sliding glass doors on the upper level. Are they connected to a security system? Something's off with this story. Let's play audio number 2, and then I will give you my assessment from both videos. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App, all stickers and chats are welcome during this live. Let's go back to the beginning of this crime 9 days ago. Today is the source. Police say 2 other people were at home at the time of the Idaho murders. Very interesting. One moment, please. Thank you.
Strange detail in this case. Police are now telling us 2 other roommates were home during that violent attack, but were not injured in any way. We also now know police were not called for hours after the murder took place.
This morning, a new message from police in Idaho after the gruesome murders of 4 students.
We cannot say that there's no threat to the community. And as we have stated, please stay vigilant.
That's after police said in a statement on Tuesday, investigators believe this was an isolated, targeted attack, and there is no imminent threat to the community at large. Authorities do still believe the close friends were targeted.
We believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there.
Police still searching for the murder weapon.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
They say there were no signs of forced entry at the home where the bodies of Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Xana's boyfriend Ethan Chapin were found. And now police revealing for the first time that 2 other roommates were home at the time of the attack but were not injured.
There was other people home at that time, but we're not just focusing just on them, we're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going.
The 2 others have not been identified, and there are no details about what they might have seen or why it took so long to alert police. The victims had been found on Sunday afternoon by officers responding to a 911 call about an unconscious individual, but investigators say they think the 4 were killed early in the morning after going out. Xana and Ethan returning from a party on campus, and Kaylee and Maddie from a bar downtown. Police are also aware of this video that they say appears to show 2 of the victims ordering from a food truck, saying it could help them establish a timeline of events that night. The president of the University of Idaho, emotional.
They were bright lights in our community and are deeply missed and remain in our thoughts and our prayers.
If everybody was like Ethan Chapin in this world, it would be a better place.
The victims' families struggling to cope with their sudden and shocking loss.
I can't wrap my head around what Thanksgiving looks like, or Christmas looks like, or even like my day-to-day looks like.
And again, with no suspect in custody, police are cautioning people to be aware of their surroundings. They're also asking the public for help with any information that could help them find this killer and solve this case. Back to you.
All right, Gotti, thank you.
Hey. All right, everybody. Today is the source, number 2. Thank you for joining me. I will now chop up and dissect the information pertaining to the Idaho 4 college students' slayings. As I said before, always remember that the truth is at the beginning of the story. Every person that spoke, every person visible, every person non-visible, every testimony given, somewhere in all the conversations to law enforcement, the truth is in those said people, the victims, the people who survived. The truth is in their conversation, and I'm going to chop up what was said and not said, what was visible and what was not mentioned during the 911 calls that should be very obvious to anybody following this content. No weapon. No break-in. Push buttons to enter the house. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say perhaps they did have security to enter, because why would you have push button numbers to get inside of a door of a home? Very strange. 3 levels. 2 were dating. I would assume they were slaying together. 2 separate females. I would assume they had their own bedrooms. Slaying. Bottom floor, I'm assuming is where the roommate stayed that survived. Use deduction. What is missing from this story that was never mentioned pertaining to these crimes? Blood trail. Bingo card. When you hear of these people calling 911, person or persons, that they found a person passed out, you have to use deduction and common sense. 4 people were brutally stabbed. You hear from the coroners that it was a gory scene, but yet that is the one thing you never heard during the alleged calling of 911 was seeing blood. Stay woke. You want me to believe that these people were killed on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and there was no trail coming from the room, out of the room, to the exit. What was the exit? What was the entry? If I'm to believe that you were asleep at the time that they were murdered, the 2 remaining roommates, you can't make me believe you did not see blood from floor to floor, because what were you doing trying to wake up one of the decedents? Stay woke. Stay woke. It doesn't matter where anybody stayed. The point is, you're going to see blood. So that makes it even more evident. I'm not here to argue anything about these dead people or that house. Common sense. Where was the person that was passed out? 2nd floor, 3rd floor. What were you doing near that person? Were they in their bedroom, in a bed, or in a separate room, passed out? Bathroom? What? A day room? What? Living quarters? What? So you have to ask yourself the obvious question. You discovered these people into the morning. This one person passed out. Was she lying face up or face down for you not to see blood? One would say, well, they had to have been face down for you not to notice blood, because that was never mentioned when they said these persons found the passed out person. You mean the person was dead, not passed out. So why didn't you mention, oh, I saw blood? So if I'm to believe that you didn't see blood, they were lying face down, I got to now ask you, why were you near the person? So where were they when you went and found them, or you stumbled across them? And how could you not notice blood? Stay woke. How could you not notice blood near the victim, around the victim, going out of the room or the location of the passed out person? The person who did the killing, either it be one person or 2, had to have been bloody. There's no way around it. It has been said that the scene was bloody, so you had to have seen blood somewhere near the victim. Whether he or she was face up or face down, who is the person that was discovered allegedly passed out? I'm assuming it's one of the females. Because I would assume the guy and the girl who were dating, they were in the same bed together. You hear the police say they believe that couple were together. So I'd assume they died in the same room. Assumingly. We don't know. They haven't told us anything. But each were targeted. Why? What did these people do to deserve death? Why did someone target these 4 individuals but not the remaining 2? And if we're to believe what someone in the chat wants to tell the queen, that the bottom floor didn't have a bedrooms on it, then that means the people sleep died near the other people on the 2nd or the 3rd level. So why would the person bypass their room? Is it perhaps the people who discovered the passed out person, made the 911 call, it's the culprit? Because we don't know these children and we don't know the people who were left behind. We don't know what's the truth or not because we were not there. But the thing that's suspicious is no break-in, number 1. Number 2, no weapon found. Do not know the suspect is a male or a female. If it's a tag team of culprits. What's the stake of the people left behind? Allegedly, they had visitors over. But then I think I heard one commentary is that they were sleeping. So what's the truth? Now you all are coming in my chat talking about a party. I don't know anything about a party. Still doesn't add up to why you wouldn't say you saw blood coming and going from the rooms. So how did the perpetrator get into the house? How did the perpetrator leave? Is there a security system attached to every entry point? Sliding doors and the regular door. Because it's going to make a beeping sound when you enter and when you exit. I heard the bottom floor had bedrooms for the person coming in my chat trying to tell me what I didn't hear. This is why I don't like doing lives. Because people always want to come in trying to tell you about what you didn't hear and what you don't know. I heard that there were bedrooms on the bottom. That's why they're saying it was targeted, because they went to the 2nd and the 3rd floor and didn't bother the other 2. Are there cameras inside of the house or outside of the entry points into the house? Once again, police believe that these were targeted crimes. No break-in, no sexual assault mentioned. 2 people left behind with visitors who came to visit. The problem I have with the storyline is, why would you be approaching the person who allegedly did not wake up? Yet you do not mention any blood around the victim coming out of the room to a door entry. That is very suspect to me. Why were these 2 people not targeted and murdered? Is the perpetrator known to the victims? Because one would have to say, if there was no break-in, no visual that the house was broke into, how did you know where to go to target the victims? That's where there's a problem. You say that they were targeted, but how would a stranger know where to go in the house to target the victims? Stay woke. The risk of going in a house and not knowing who stays there if it's a stranger. Once again, you don't know if there's a doorbell camera. They could be seen. Whether you're in disguise, a hoodie, whatsoever. The risk if you do not know. No weapon found, no break-in. Keypad entry. Was the house secure as far as motion sensors on windows, doors, sliding glass doors? 2 people remaining with visitors coming and going. If I'm to believe the 2 that were remaining that were not harmed, were they up at the time of the murders? Because that's going to be very dicey if we get a timeline, an exact time of when the people were allegedly murdered. What were the 2 remaining people doing at the time of the murders? If we're to believe that they were actually in the house. What were they guests doing? Well, if they were lying in wait, how did they get in the house? Got to make it make sense. The keypad means you have to have the code to get in, or somebody left the door, window, glass door unlocked. So let's ask that question. Were any other entry points left unlocked? Because if there was no break-in, no jimmying of doors and windows, then that means the perpetrator is either somebody that lives in a house or somebody let the perpetrator in. How long did it take to kill all 4 people? Is there more than one perpetrator? Are we talking about women perpetrators? Once again, keypad entry, is it attached to a security to where the doors would make a sound going in and going out? Cameras inside or outside? Did anybody have a personal camera in his or her room? Her room. Too many places close by. Apartments sitting at the top of the hill from the house. A house sitting right near this house. Is this a neighbor that committed these crimes? Who was the perpetrator? Are we talking about 1 killer or 2? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I played this audio both to show you that the ex-FBI official had great points in the audio that they ruled out the key players who live in the house. Why? Why were the key players ruled out? Officials say that what they saw at the scene is what led them to believe that it was targeted. So what was seen visibly by detectives to say these people were targeted? Did somebody write something on the wall? Was something stolen? Was there something significant left by the perpetrator or perpetrators to say, yes, they were targeted? They were targeted. Why? What was the motive for the murders? You want me to believe that all 4 of these people did something to someone so heinous that they all deserve death? What was left behind for law officials to say this was a targeted crime of 4 separate people. Because what you have to ask yourself is the obvious. The perpetrator had to have been bloody when he or she or they left out of this house. How did he or she leave? By car, by foot. Stay woke. The risk of, as I said, being there and making entry into the house, you had to have been snooping around because there was no break-in. You either was let in, a door, window was unlocked, you were watching to get in, make it make sense. How did you arrive to the scene? Very open driveway, I'm sure you can see from the street. Wee hours. Police are suspecting that all 4 died when they got home from their outings. So then that means somebody had to have been lying in wait or watching them from where they were, or they knew them. And they knew when they got home. Because it's strange that 2 were doing something over here at a food truck, 2 were over here together, the couple at a bar. And what are the odds they all come home, live on different floors of this house, but are bludgeoned? And 2 also live in the house, but they are not harmed. So whether they lived on the first floor, second floor, third, it still doesn't make any sense because you'd have to have knowledge of the house to know who was where. And the risk of going in there not knowing if somebody was up watching TV, having sex, eating food in the kitchen. Stay woke. You have to know they were asleep in order to kill them in their sleep. That's why I tell you, you have to use deduction in true crime. Nothing adds up, especially with there being no break-in. That leads one to believe the perpetrator is known to the victims, unless somebody left another entry point unlocked. What is the motive for the murders? Is this a male or a female? Is this a tag team? Are the remaining roommates the culprits in the murders of their roommates? Was there jealousy involved in the roommates? Was there jealousy involved with the visitors that came to see the 2 remaining roommates? Why were the 2 remaining roommates trying to see about the person that was allegedly unconscious? Why were you checking on that person? And who is that person? Stay woke. And never mention seeing blood. Just, I called 911 because she couldn't get up. I'm assuming this is she. So did you go in their room and find them unconscious, or they were lying in the floor unconscious of the bedroom, or they were lying somewhere else in the house unconscious? And the fact that you didn't see blood and that was never mentioned in the commentary strikes me as very suspicious. Because even if the person was lying face down, it was bleeding underneath their garment, I don't believe it. Because blood would have been seen around the victim, going out of a room. That's why it doesn't even matter where the victim was killed. In a day room, open room, bedroom, bathroom, the perpetrator had to leave out of there bloodied. The perpetrator was bloody. The perpetrator possibly cut himself or herself. It is known that when a person stabs another human being multiple times, he or she can sustain an injury to his or her own hands. because after you stab a person so many times, the blood becomes slippery on the knife and you can cut yourself. So let's ask that question. Did the perpetrator cut himself or herself? What did they do with the knife? What's the same knife used on all 4 victims? Why was there no mention of blood when they called 911 about the passed out person? I find that very suspicious. That is the reason why I did this live this early morning. My spirit is telling me something is off with the remaining 2 roommates and the visitors, because now I'm supposed to believe that all people were asleep in the house and these people woke up on that morning and went to go find victim number whichsoever and thought they were just passed out and couldn't wake them up for some odd reason, and then dialed 911 with no mention of seeing blood. Make it make sense. What the hell happened in that house? Is this a roommate issue? Somebody's mad at the other roommates. Crime of passion, crime of jealousy, revenge. Somebody's mad at somebody for doing something, saying something. Somebody wasn't getting along. Somebody allowed somebody to come in to kill all 4. Why all 4? What did these 4 individuals do to make a person feel the need to kill all 4 people? Something about the story does not add up. And I kept listening to the videos this morning, and I told myself, I do not want to make any accusations against anyone as being the culprit in these heinous murders, but I always use deduction in true crime, and I always stick to the obvious. I do not go by rhetoric. I do not go by gossip. I do not go by Facebook, TikTok. I go by what's been said from law officials, and what has been said does not add up pertaining to the person calling 911 and waking up the alleged passed out person and no mention of blood. It was said by the coroner that the scene was bloody. So why would I believe he or she or whomever woke up the passed out person didn't see blood? That would be the first thing I would mention. Hey, I went to go wake up Susie Mae and there was blood everywhere. There was blood going in the room, coming out of the room. I followed the trail and it led to door A, door B, sliding glass, something. Don't you find it strange? There's no mention of a blood trail going out of any entry point of the house. Just, I called because they didn't get up. Well, why were you looking for them specifically? Why were you looking for that specific person and thought they were what? Inebriated and passed out. So where did you go to notice the person passed out? In her room? In the bathroom? What? Where was she? And why was there no mention of a bloody scene? Because I find it strange that this person has killed 4 people and you didn't notice blood going anywhere near the passed out person. Come on now. I don't believe it. That's my commentary for today. This case is like many cases. Many people are already meddling, assuming they know what happened to the 4, digging up stuff about Peter, Paul, and Dick. When you don't know the people, you can't say who killed them. You can't say the motive because you don't know the people in the story. And everything you're going to hear is he said and she said, and somewhere in there is the truth. But I'm not getting ready to ride on gossip because I don't have that kind of time. That's the very reason why I didn't want to talk about this subject matter because it has too many moving parts. It has too many victims, and anybody could be the culprit. Stalker, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-entanglement, neighbor, could be anybody that killed these people. But what makes it suspect is there's no break-in. So that means somebody had access and was let into the house. Or one of the women let a door be unlocked and didn't lock it back. Is it possible that somebody came in, didn't lock a door, didn't lock the glass door? Go in and out of a glass door, you still would have to climb up on one of those levels to get in. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Always mind the children. Be aware of your surroundings. This is a very diabolical case coming out of Idaho. They haven't had a murder in about 5 years. I'm curious if this police department is well equipped to handle this case. If need be, I pray they get outside agencies to help. They have a 36-man-woman police department. They do not have adequate communications department, which is pivotal in a case such as this. I played you audio of an ex-FBI official saying they need adequate communications to the public. They appear in disarray, not in conjunction to getting the information out properly. People are curious. People are scared because when you do not have a perpetrator apprehended, the door is left open to speculation and fear. Do they have an idea of who committed this crime? I do not know. What evidence was left behind besides the obvious? Did the killer try to clean up? See, those are the questions you should be asking. Because sometimes the perpetrator will try to clean up. And if he or she cut himself, they would need to wash up. Was this job sloppy? I do believe it was said it was sloppy. Was it planned? Spur of the moment? Robbery? Revenge? See, you don't know. But it is said that what was left behind at the scene is the reason that these people were targeted. So what was left behind to indicate that these were targeted murders? Did the perpetrators leave something behind? Write something down, write something on the wall. Copycat killings. What are we saying? Ted Bundy comes to mind, entering a female sorority house many moons ago, bludgeoning victims. So it can be done if the door is not locked. Why were these 4 individuals murdered? What did these 4 people do to deserve this crime? You have to logically ask yourself, if this is not a random attack, the police have it right that they were targeted, then what was the motive? And where is the killer and killers? And do the police have an idea who committed these crimes? Was their DNA left behind? Did the perpetrator cut himself or herself? Did they drop anything on their persons? How did they enter the house? How did they exit the house? So you have to ask all those questions because in the end, those things are important. How he or she got in, how he or she left out. You want me to believe he or she walked out of that house on foot after bludgeoning all those people? Stay woke. Risking going into someone's house, not knowing if they have security cameras inside of the house, security cameras in their bedroom, motion sensors inside of the house. You don't know what these people have unless you know the victims and you know the layout of the house. You know who's going to be home. You know the rules of the victims. This was orchestrated and an inside job. Was this an inside job by the roommates? Or they got somebody to come in and kill the four? So the cleanup would be easy. Go out, dump all bloody clothing in a dumpster, come back, cleanup job, late morning, dial 911, bingo card. Always use deduction in true crime. Always focus on what was not mentioned. And what was not mentioned in the storyline is the person dialing 911 and saying, there's blood everywhere. Something has happened. Not, I can't wake up Susie. Because that's what's off about the story. No mentioning of, I see blood. Blood is coming out of the room. There's a trail of blood going from here to there. You want me to believe these two people did not see any blood in this house when they got up and 4 people were bludgeoned to death. And these 2 people and their visitors did not see any blood going in and out of the rooms and exit points. Bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no way you didn't see blood somewhere. Especially if you share a floor with one of the girls. Because the perpetrator had to leave out. Which entry did the perpetrator leave out of? And did they leave by foot? Did they leave by car? 1, risky to leave out bloodied. The time they left out. The risk of being seen bloodied. Stay woke. Did they clean up? What clothes could they have changed into if they were a guy and bloody? You have to ask all the questions. Easy for a female to do the killings and change into women's clothes as a woman. Stay woke. Stay woke. Are we talking about a female perpetrator? Perpetrators. Was this an act of jealousy? From an outside person or somebody from the inside of the house who's jealous of the young ladies? Had a falling out, an altercation? Or could this be something even more sinister as some people wanting to play funny games and see if they could get away with murdering their roommates? Or having somebody come in to murder the roommates? Because either way, no break-in, there's only 2 other options. The girls let the perpetrators in. The roommates let the perpetrators in, or the girls left an entry point unlocked. I want to thank you for joining me. Please be safe out there. It's the holiday season. When shopping, be aware of your surroundings. Wear a crossover bag, ladies, to shop. You do not need a big purse to shop. Keep all parcels in the trunk, not on the seats or the floorboards. Always have your keys ready when you leave out. Do not fumble for your keys in the parking lot or at your car. Do not post to social media Do not put your flat screen boxes out at the dumpster or garbage cans as to alert your neighbors, passerbys of what you've purchased. Do not go in strange places to look at any type of items for sale in the dark. If it ain't online or in the store, bypass it. Happy holidays to everybody in the viewing audience. Thank you so much for joining me. The second live tonight will be pertaining to Theodore Robert Bundy. This will be my Crime Vault segment. Welcome all new visitors, subscribers, 1,000+ new subscribers. I want to thank you for patronizing Everyday Shenanigans. Please be safe. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see a crime, know of abuse, neglect of a child, you can call anonymously or just dial 911 and bypass DHS. It is time for people to stop sitting idly by and allowing crime to go on. If you see something, say something. Because you just may save a life. Let's pray for these 4 individuals, their families, and that there's justice. The public is in danger because there's a person free walking. Whether these were intentional homicides or not, doesn't matter. Those people are dead. They're not coming back. And there's no perpetrator apprehended. So there is a threat to the community. And there will continue to be a threat until the person or persons are apprehended. So it doesn't matter the motive. Doesn't matter who did it. The person is walking free. And they are eating and slumbering after they have bludgeoned 4 people cruelly. And these people deserve justice. And I pray that the police department gets it right and apprehends the correct person. Because we have already seen the case of allegedly a targeted murder, which was Debbie Collier, and we now find out the woman allegedly killed herself. So I'm praying they got it right in Idaho, that they know what they're doing and they know that this is targeted. Because what will be jacked up is if this is just somebody playing funny games and took a chance on snooping around this house and found a way in without having to break in. That would be even worse, because then you have to now try to figure out who the hell entered that house and killed 4 people and not related to any of the victims and or knows the victims. Did anybody around there see anything? The house that sits adjacent to the property, the apartment complex that sits above the property, did anybody see anyone coming or going, acting suspicious, hanging around, driving around, sitting in their cars late night? Was there something visible to anyone living nearby that property? Thank you all so much for joining me. Prayers for these students' families. This is a tragic, tragic event. And as I said, no matter the motive, there was no justification for killing these individuals. They had their whole lives ahead of them, and they were brutally snuffed out for 9 times out of 10, something petty and trivial. You don't know people. And what will be very disturbing is if we find out they know their perpetrator. They knew their perpetrator. You can't trust people. And sadly, you can't be friends with people, sleep in the same house with people, date people, work with people, because you can be a victim of homicide by working with people, as you see with the Walmart shootings. You could die by the hands of dating someone. You could die by the hands of somebody that's a roommate, a neighbor. Do not think you are exempt, because the devil is busy. And frankly, he doesn't need a reason to use somebody to snuff you out. That's his job, to infiltrate. And that is what happened on that fateful morning in Idaho. The devil sent in the reaper. And the reaper snuffed out 4 young people. Happy holidays to everybody in the viewing audience. God bless all of you. Join me later this evening to talk about Theodore Robert Bundy on Crime Vaults, an extension of Everyday Shenanigans. Talk to you guys later. Thank you for your time.